Hey guys, welcome back to Seller Sessions on a sunny Thursday afternoon, 4 p.m. BST. Today, welcome back to the show, Destiny Wishon. How you doing?
Doing amazing. Happy Q4. It's official.
Yes, it's the start of the med season as of today. Right, so today is normally you come on to discuss in and around PPC. We have you on the round tables, etc. But today is your in-depth. So we're going to take it back, your life as an entrepreneur. You've just been made CEO of Better AMS, which we'll get into a bit later. I'm just going to share to the groups. Do you want to let people know what you've been up to this week before we get into your story?
Yeah, 100%. I'm sure, as well as everyone else, it has basically been Q4 prep. So we have been diving into a lot of things with the team on how we can best, prepare advertising campaigns and get ready for the scale. Because not only do we have Black Friday, Cyber Monday, New Year, New You, we have Prime Day. So that's primarily what I've been focused on.
Excellent. Cool. Right. So let's take it straight back to your childhood. What was your earliest memories of being like having an entrepreneurial spirit? Not everyone does. They kind of develop later, but what was it for you?
Well, hopefully my siblings don't see this, but being the oldest child and having to keep them in line is probably the earliest sign that my parents were like, yep, she's type A, she's bossy, something's going to come out of that.
Yeah. Cool. So take it back to like influences. Who was your biggest influence in your childhood? Is it your mum, dad, or is there other people?
I would say definitely both of my parents. Work ethic was always their number one biggest thing. Like they had this major fear of having lazy kids. Like during the summer, it was no TV, nothing. I had to get a job when I was 16. I was a manager at a Sonic before I was 17. Like, yeah, they definitely had a strong influence.
Cool. And so in child, did you have any jobs when you were a lot younger? When you was at school, did you go out and wash cars and stuff like that? Or
Yeah, 100%. I think we were always doing something with my parents. I was, always helping them with different side projects, working on all these different things. So I dipped my toes into a little bit of everything.
cool. And what about school? Were you academic? Did you enjoy it? Did you push against the school system?
I was academic because I had to be. My parents basically didn't allow us to get anything like lower than an A or a B. But I was the type of person that was like minimum viable offer from day one. Like I would do the math on what grade I needed on a project. So I knew just how much time I needed to invest in order to just get a B. I thought it was way too structured. They don't teach you a lot of your core values. They just kind of teach you what they want you to know.
Yeah. So did you enjoy school generally? Did you have a good relationship with friends or?
Yeah, I enjoyed school. I played a lot of sports as well. So I was always balancing, having a job at 16, being a multiple varsity athlete, and then still having to get good grades. College, I didn't enjoy as much because I was focusing so much on work. And I, again, felt like it was kind of a scam.
Yeah. Okay. So with the school years, do you think it's helped you today? Because I know I've known you for a while. Math is one of your strong points. So I like to dip in a bit more. Like you looked to do the least amount of work for the maximum amount of results in terms of being smart. Talk me through that thought process and where that come from.
I think it was constantly having to balance so many different aspects of my life. I think that's where it really came into play. I wasn't just focusing on, math classes and taking statistics and things like that. It was balancing that with the job and with sports. So I had to figure out, how I needed to structure my life to make it the most optimized. So, with school, I definitely took like AP stats. That was a fantastic class. I really loved diving into statistics, but overall it's, my parents had such high expectations. It was figuring out what I could balance on the day to day. So before I even know what first principles or minimal viable offers was, I was, diving into that as a kid without realizing it.
Yeah, so they had a strong influence. They just didn't want you to be, for a better word of it, entitled. And I do this with my daughter. It's like you're terrified that your child is going to grow up entitled. So you try and install that work ethic. So talk me through some of your early jobs. Your first job was at 16. And what sports were you doing? Let's talk about some of the sports and integrating your work there.
Yeah, I was playing volleyball, basketball, and softball, like all on varsity at the time. So it was nonstop. And then I had a job at Sonic. So I was, delivering drinks to everyone at Sonic, and I'd work weekends and, close at nights.
Yeah. And so the there's some of the education and stuff. What was you like studying? What were some of your favorite subjects?
Honestly, I really, really love things that have to do with life and life skills. I feel like that's kind of where there is, a drop off in school. So honestly, like sociology was one of my absolute favorite classes. I really love statistics because our teacher made sure to align everything we were learning in stats with real life projects. So I remember one of the projects we had to do was like we took a Barbie and basically tied rubber bands to it and had it bungee jump off the building. And we had to do like real life application on how far we thought it would land and stuff like that. So making things applicable to real life was incredible. Like we did March Madness brackets and things like that. And that was amazing.
Cool. So let's walk through these first jobs. So you were a tender in a bar, were you, at the weekends?
Yes. In college, I bartended and a waitress, which is probably the number one most important thing I did for entrepreneurship.
Right. Okay. And then where did you go on from there?
I got started at a kind of a startup in my area that did full consultancy for Amazon.
Okay. So let's go right into that. So what year was this?
This was 4 years ago now, I believe.
Okay, so it wasn't that long ago. So walk me through that. So you're saying it's a startup, like a tech startup that integrated, or was it just a startup company in general that offered services?
Yeah, so I'm based in Bentonville, Arkansas, which is the home of Walmart. So pretty much every vendor is kind of in the back door here. So this company started an Amazon consultancy. So it was kind of the anything and everything agency. And I was like the first digital marketing hire, which at the time was really cool. I'm an intern, like 21 years old, like learning this new industry. And I remember walking into my first day and being so overwhelmed. Like, I have no idea what a buy box is. I will never learn this stuff. And it's always really humbling for me to kind of think back about like how overwhelming it is when you first start in the e-commerce industry.
Yeah. And so is that where you learned your PPC skills is from there then?
It is. I kind of got thrown into accounts. It's a little bit the reverse. Most people start on the private label side, so they have a very limited budget to kind of play around with. I was on the reverse where they had quite a few clients already. So I was diving in with enough budget to really start testing. I remember hopping on like Ben Cummings videos and like Mike Zagari and like diving in and just trying to pick up pieces of information like all across the board back then.
Yeah. And did you have any big accounts where like way over budget, massive spend and some losses? Did you have some struggling times there?
I think the biggest thing I struggled with is you just don't know what you don't know. So I remember dabbling with some softwares, trying to figure out how to utilize that, but I didn't know enough to create bid optimization rules and things like that. So one of the bigger things that I personally had to deal with is like the EQ side of things, of client communication and emotional intelligence, because we scaled so quickly in that role. I was working with like $10 million of spend within a year and a half. So when you have that kind of money, you need to be able to speak to that kind of money. So I was speaking with clients and things like that I had never had experience navigating that.
Did you get the respect that you deserve? Like when you're young and you get people and they're like, oh, I've got a kid in charge of my account. Do you get any of that kind of attitude?
And
I didn't mean that in a disrespectful way. I'm just talking about people looking and going, that person there, they are a trainee, they're managing 10 million and you're only 21, but you're killing it. You're doing the job, but the perception.
It took time. I think that's honestly what built me to be as well spoken as I am on just the communication aspect. But I'll tell you, the first time I flew out to a client's office and I walked in, I like broke out in hives. I was so scared for them to actually put a face to the voice because of that reason. I was like, I'm a very, very young female in this space, flying out to this clientele who thinks I have a full team behind me. And it was one of the scariest things I've done in my career.
And what did you do to get over that?
I would constantly force myself to be put into that position, honestly. So it was extremely, extremely scary. And I could have, turned it down and just continued to have phone communication. But I was like, this needs to happen. I need to learn this aspect. So anytime I'm faced with like this major fear, I send the email or sign the contract. So that way I have no choice but to go.
So you're putting there in terms of the commitment. So you're talking about EQ. Do you want to just go into that? Where were you learning your skills in and around that? Is it reading books or what?
It was a lot about reading books, but I will say that waitressing and bartending was a huge aspect for me, learning that emotional communication and intelligence side, because you're constantly having to be relatable to the tables you're serving. You're constantly having to be humble anytime an order's messed up. Your tip, your college relies on it. I paid for school that way. So slowly dipping my toes into the communication aspects. I've read a ton of books in that as well. So I think those have all really, really helped me roll into like active listening is a huge part of anything that we do, and just the humility side of things.
Yeah. And let's be honest, dealing with the public are fucking horrible. They can be real bastards, can't they? So being 19, 20 and kind of dealing with shitty people, like you said, you developed the emotional EQ side, but were you there where, they would really upset you, but you were able to hold it down? Can you talk me through some of the experiences that you had?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a few times where I've hopped on a call and literally just like gotten my ass chewed.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's just putting yourselves in the other person's shoe. I think that's the biggest thing I learned, is the active listening aspect of truly what is their problem? What can I help to fix their problem? That probably, again, roots to my customer service industry of kind of learning how to navigate that. But once you kind of realize there's so much more to the world than just what you're doing in the day-to-day, and you can put yourself into someone else's shoes and understand why they're upset, I think that was one of the most eye-opening experiences to me, is just kind of living in the moment and seeing myself externally.
So do you feel that, as you were growing up, you've got, because obviously you're technically very smart, like you're very good with math, etc. Do you find that that it was like I had to work on myself to develop the other side, the communication side, because like I can do this, because it's like with engineers, I work around engineers as well, and that you've got times where they don't always get their personality across as well as they would like to get their personality across. They're so smart, geniuses, but their integration and relationship bonding isn't always where they want it to be. And then sometimes they have to work on those because they're used to having preciseness in terms of code. It either works or it don't. Did you find any of that, is that you're very strong on one side, but these are the skills you had to develop?
Yeah, 100%. Something that Taylor and I have definitely dove into, and the way we've kind of viewed it is like someone's strengths versus their weaknesses. And our philosophy is always playing onto someone's strengths. So we run a lot of personality tests within the company. Like I'm 85% visionary and I lead with influencing. Those are my two strongest personality types. So that's why my role kind of shifted the way it did, where I need to be kind of more public facing because I'm really great at building relationships. Taylor, on the flip side, is an integrator. So he doesn't love to be in the public's eye, and he doesn't love the relationship building as much. So finding out those core assets that we have through personality tests and just, self-awareness was an extremely large part of what we do. Because what I do struggle with is the integrating side of things as much. So that's where I really had to build up that core knowledge of Amazon advertising, being in accounts, and figuring out how to balance the two.
Yeah, this is interesting. And did you do this personality test with your staff? Because obviously you've been scaling up the business.
Yeah.
It's interesting how people integrate this now, isn't it? Like doing personality tests to make sure you got the right fit for the company. Can you tell me how that, we don't use it, but I'd love to know how that works. I know a lot of people do use it, and I think the listeners would be interested for their own businesses as well.
Yeah, we do multiple personality tests from onboarding on, and we have one test that we actually require people to take before they even officially sign with us. And I can't remember what one that is, but it basically tells you your 6 core personality assets and kind of how they're going to merge with your team. So mine is like influencing, relationship building, and like visionary. But then we can see that this person's great at operations, or this person's great at building systems. And then that really helps us see how they're going to fit into the aspects of the team. And then once they sign, we also look at what their operating systems are. So we utilize the Colby test which basically tells someone what their core operating system is. So mine tells me if I try to dive in too deep and try to be too analytical with something, I'm not operating with the most efficiency. What I do best is basically scraping a ton of information and then figuring out how to communicate that info. So we have every single person on our team take all these so we can help one with their future planning and succession planning of their role, but also figuring out how they're going to do best within our team.
And what about for people for the, for having that personality where they integrate with a team, because sometimes in a small company, you could have one employee, unfortunately, they're really good at what they do, but as a human, they don't interact well with others. They don't play well. And sometimes that can be a disturbance to the team. Do you have anything there that you look for as well in terms of testing?
We do. So we have kind of decided that one, culture fit is one of the number one most important things. It doesn't matter how amazing anyone is at Amazon advertising. With us being completely virtual, it makes things more complex. So we really need someone who's just a great culture fit on our team. So we definitely look for that. We look at small things that really align with Taylor and I's philosophies, like abundance mentality, great vibe, and just someone who's actively ready to learn at all times. So that's one of the most important things we look at. And then in terms of how that applies to like actual skill sets, someone who's able to juggle multiple things, someone who's actively looking to, have a lot of personal development. Those are core traits that we look for, optimism, ability to juggle lots of things, culture fit, things like that.
Cool. And when did you land at Better AMS? Because obviously you're doing this for a few years. You're getting your chops up at this startup. What happened there? Were you headhunted and you left, or?
So this is like the craziest thing, but I actually came across his presentation from like Global Sources. Taylor and Sean Smith had flown out, presented at Global Sources, and I just came across his presentation. I was like, oh my goodness, there's a kid that's my age, like 20, 21 at the time, doing exactly what I'm doing. So I kind of sat back and I wasn't too sure about anything. And then I came across his website and he was hiring. And I was like, man, I'm getting scammed. Like, I'm not too sure about this. So I ended up hopping on a call with him, applying. I kept another job for like 3 to 4 weeks to make sure I was going to get paid and everything. And I got started as an account executive back in the AMS days. So those familiar with the platform, AMS used to be its own advertising platform with only sponsor brands and product display ads. So I got started as account executive, and then I brought the sponsor product side to the business, as well as the more scalability focused side due to my experience with a lot of the vendors. And we really haven't looked back since then.
Yeah, I think, I was there with Sean, and it was Global Sources, October 2017. Me, Sean, and Taylor. There's a few of us there.
Yes.
Back then. So you joined in 17 or 18?
I believe it was 18. It's been 2 years and 8 months. Does that math work out?
Maybe a bit precise. Yeah. What else was I going to say to you? Yeah. So talk me through first day. So you joined with Taylor. And you thought, why did you think it's a scam? Like, when you think of what goes on in our community, he's the last person I see as a scam artist. What made you think that?
I was so used to dealing with, more corporate operated companies. Even the startups in this area are very corporate, very old money from Walmart world. Yeah. And I was like, there's no way there's this kid that's my age just making this internet money, because that's what it looked like. Because we get so wrapped up in the community, we don't necessarily realize how we're being portrayed. Yeah. So when I came in, I put a lot of value on how our brand awareness was. I was like, I don't want anything clickbaity. I don't want anything scammy. And then that's kind of, where he really initially scaled is his brand name and his personal branding at the time, because he was really tight with the Amazon private label community. Yeah. So I was just like, there's no way there's this 19-year-old kid making internet money who can pay me, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, back in the day, he came on seller sessions, he exploded, and then he moved to another country. I didn't see him much after that. We stayed in contact, but he was, like, I was really impressed with him when I had him on the show back in, it would have been 18 now, late 17, early 18. And where's he living now? He's moved over to...
He's still in Panama.
He's still in Panama. Yeah. No, I haven't seen him for a while, but no, I remember he done the show and he phoned me. He said, Dan, it's exploded. He said, got loads of new clients and stuff like that. So I said, good on you. So he's a very smart guy. So but this is your profile. So going back to you now, you joined. Taylor's a good guy, as we know. You got over that after 4 weeks. You left the other job. So what did you start doing? You started from not the bottom, because there isn't very much a bottom. It was like you was an account manager, weren't you? And you kind of worked your way up. So give us a bit of a timeline walking through the last 18 months, 2 years.
Yeah. So I got started as just, account manager. I was literally just managing all of our accounts from a strategic perspective. It was much different than the background I came from, because I came from the vendor world. So I was dealing with like shopper marketing teams, legal teams, all for Amazon advertising, like hopping on AMG calls. And when I started with Taylor, he was focusing primarily on 7 to 8 figure private label brands. And since we were only on the AMS side, all I had to do was manage sponsor brands and product display ads. So it was a pretty big role change, but it was amazing. It was really cool opportunity getting to work from home. That's where I really got to learn a lot about my self-awareness and how I was managing my own time. And honestly, that shift from working in office to entrepreneurship, or even just working from home, is a big one. Because there's a lot of mental things about yourself that you really realize what needs worked on when you're working from home. The roller coaster is much more aggressive when it's just you in an office working by yourself and you don't have a team to kind of help balance out those emotions. So I really started diving into the personal development side. Taylor is huge with personal development. So he was sending over all these kinds of books and things like that for me to dive into, different courses. And I did account management for a year. And then Taylor was primarily like, do you want to scale the company? And I was like, what do you mean? No. I was like, I'm okay with where I'm at. He was like, well, I'm going to start focusing on this. So if you want to scale, here's the resources, go for it. So my back was kind of against the wall, and I dove into the LinkedIn personal branding side pretty hard. And the company started scaling. I think we went from like 40,000 to, or like 30,000 to 60,000 within like 6 months. We got to the point where like, oh crap, I can't handle this on my own. We need to hire. And then that's when the company really started coming together and became more than a side hustle. Yeah.
So when did you start hiring? So we've got a bit of a timeline leading up to today, because we'll talk about your role a bit later as a CEO now. But so you went from 30,000, you doubled the revenue to 60,000, which, by the way, guys, as an agency, that's good money, because you're not carrying inventory, and obviously you have a situation where you have clients rolling and on and off the platform. So you're constantly, not all, it depends on what your churn rate is. Mine and your churn rate's quite low, but people will leave in certain periods a year, like leading into Q4. You get a lot more clients. Some will roll off and take it in-house and stuff like that, don't they? So 60,000 on a small team is pretty good revenue, and the margins are really good on that. So where did you go with growing the team? What kind of areas were you looking to expand on?
So at this point, we had added sponsored products to the business. So we were doing, full Amazon ad type management, and, we were still scaling just based off kind of all of our personal branding. So we ended up hiring kind of our first big account executive 14 months ago. Yeah. And basically what we were looking at is kind of the conversation you and I had before this, is adjusting our in the business versus on the business workload. So that first hire was primarily like helping me get more time to focus on the personal branding aspect, which was doing a lot of speaking events, became really interconnected with the community and built a lot of amazing relationships, did basically a lot of free courses, things like that. And then our first hire was really helped taking the load off with accounts. So that pushed our margins down a bit because we were still scaling, but it was primarily to get things off of my plate. So that went really well. He has done absolutely incredible. And he has kind of the number one asset that Taylor and I don't have, which is management skills. Right. Taylor and I are both very autonomous people in two different ways. So that first hire ended up being absolutely incredible at managing people. So that was one of those like universe things where you're like, that worked out extremely well. Yeah. So that kind of helped set the precedence for where we are now.
So you brought that guy in, or that person in, on a managerial role to manage day to day, like in the nicest possible way, a pair of safe hands, so that you guys can get on with everything else, but the details are getting done on a daily basis. Yeah.
Yep. 100%.
And so who was next in the door? What was you looking to hire from there?
A senior account executive is really where we were at. We had a lot of big accounts in the pipeline that kind of need that additional level of expertise. So that was where we were at the time. Got him onboarded, absolutely incredible. He's actually became our director of DSP. So we ended up adding DSP to our services, which has been a whole different world. And we didn't want to just dip our toes in and offer remarketing. We really want to scale that as, sharper marketing analysis and a traditional display platform. So we needed someone who could dive in that deep. So we hired our director of DSP. So he's still a senior account manager and our director of DSP.
Yeah. And then next, if we start walking through the team, because you're on like 15 now, so we've got a bit of time.
Yep. So 2 more account executives, which have been incredible additions to the team. We were really looking for our core values there. And they are operating at pretty much like maximum capacity right now, especially headed into Q4. They're amazing in their own ways in that like their personal branding, again, is doing incredible. We want everyone on our team to be able to just help people. Like that's a really core value of ours, is to be able to provide the best experience for everyone. So we kind of sat down and talked about our vision: best experience, best results, utmost efficiency. Every client, those are our 3 standards. So everyone on our team, we really want to uphold those. So with best experience, we have everyone on our team like posting content, really trying to just help people out there. So those were incredible additions.
And so where does this lead into your role? You've just been promoted to CEO recently. How did all that kind of come about?
Honestly, it was like pretty anticlimactic. We were at our last offsite and we were looking at our organizational chart and kind of how our roles are structured. And Taylor was like, "Will you move Destaney to CEO?" And I'm going to be honest, I was like, "What?" And he was like, "I think it makes the most sense. You're the visionary of the company." And, to me, I was like, that's kind of a big deal. That's not something. I was like, "Do we need to talk about this?" He's like, "No, I don't think so. I think it makes the most sense." And I said, "Okay." And the next day he updated his LinkedIn role to COO. And I was like, okay, I guess I don't have a choice now. This is public facing.
Yeah. And so where's the plans going forward from here now? With that in mind, you've just been bumped up to CEO. What are some of the things that you want to achieve in the next couple of years?
I want to be the #1 most trustworthy Amazon advertising agency in the world. So that's kind of our shorthand goals to get to that point. Again, through best experience, most efficient, and best relationships and results. Those are like the core of how we're going to get there. We want to merge into like a full marketing platform as well, but we don't want to just throw in anything and everything to satisfy clients. We want to do it very strategically. So DSP is a huge focus for us right now. Walmart is a huge focus. So through those 3 avenues is really how we're working at getting to that point.
Excellent. Right, I'll go into some of the comments now. Alan says, "Hey, Danny and Destaney, hope you're both keeping well. Always thank you for your time." Tiff's back and says, "Good morning." Facebook user says, "I have a question," and emoji putting their hands up. Tiff says, "Excellent advice, empathy and active listening." Joe says, "Love that. You need the language to speak a huge amounts of money. Wow, that touched my soul." Wellington has said, "Good morning, sir. Learning a great deal from you and your guests." Andy Shields is here. Would love to know what Destaney sees as the complexity challenges around Amazon advertising 2021 and over the next 12 to 18 months.
That is a fantastic question. I will say diversification is going to be a huge challenge for people, and basically consistently learning everything new that there is to offer on the platform. So it used to be, you got up your sponsored brand ads, no one else was running them because you were the only brand registered one, so you had a competitive advantage. Well, now everyone knows that Amazon advertising is pretty much a requirement for success if you're really looking at scaling on the platform, just due to the algorithm and the flywheel and things like that. So now that everyone is looking at investing in their Amazon advertising, it's how do you take that Amazon advertising to the next level? How do you utilize Store Spotlight Mobile, custom image beta, video and search, and DSP? DSP is going to be like the next barrier to entry where everyone kind of slowly starts diving into, and then we're going to see that get much more competitive. But it's much less about private labeling a product and churning and burning, and more about building a brand. So I think that's going to be the biggest challenge.
Cool. Books. Talk to me about some of your most inspirational books and why.
Man, let's see here. It's really dependent on kind of what you want to dive into. I love Power versus Force for a mentality perspective. It's kind of dives into like quantum physics and things like that. It really helps with my mentality aspects. Let's see. I am really loving the sales acceleration formula right now. So anyone looking at building a sales team, that is an amazing book. It talks about HubSpot's core values and how they basically created a formula for scaling their sales team. It kind of goes against a lot of traditional mainstream sales aspects. So that's fantastic. Principles by Ray Dalio. Great book just for building a really strong, transparent culture. One of my favorite books is Shoe Dog as well by Phil Knight, because it talks about the Nike success story. And you always hear me say like fail fast. And I'm absolutely Nike obsessed. So actually hearing the foundation behind that story was incredible.
Cool. Money or legacy?
What did you say?
Money or legacy?
Legacy.
How would you like to be remembered?
Oh, man. That's a big question. I want to be remembered as someone who truly did everything possible to try to help the people around them and kind of like always brought good vibes, good energy. I think that your day-to-day is directly affected by the people you surround yourself with and even what you see online. So I want to be the person that like has a positive asset to someone's life, even if it's as simple as like seeing a post, seeing a YouTube video I want it to bring value to people's lives.
Excellent. There's a quick question here from Joe that says, how do you change your language around huge amounts of money?
I think the core of it is you start learning different aspects as companies start scaling. Their focus has become much more long-term than short-term. And I think at its core, that's everything that we're doing here. And that's kind of the difference in what I feel like we're trying to brand or build as a brand is a legacy rather than just make quick cash. So when you really start changing from short-term gratification to like, what can I do in the long term to help build a brand and change your mental philosophy behind like, instead of getting affected by what happens in the day-to-day to rather seeing your picture is like a large scope timeline that directly correlates with huge amounts of money as well, because that's kind of how they start seeing things.
Cool. One piece of advice you would give to an Amazon seller in Q4?
Ooh, one.
Okay, let's do three. Let's do three. Yeah.
It is going to be crazy. Do not let the day-to-day affect what you're going to be doing. Yesterday was a great example. You know, half of Amazon like broke down. Reporting was absolutely
cliff, the reporting. I got a few phone calls yesterday as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like this constant freak out moment. But again, we're all familiar with how Amazon works. So look at the picture in the long term. Don't let something like that absolutely stress you out, because you're going to see a lot of those fluctuations headed into Q4. One big call out headed up like the 5 days before Prime Day and the 5 days before Cyber Monday last year, we saw absolute drop in conversions because now the public actually knows about Prime Day. Last year was kind of the first time I saw the public be as aware of Prime Day as they are of like Cyber Monday, Black Friday. So conversion rates dropped. People stopped purchasing. So instead of like absolutely panicking and trying to jack up your spend and budget to get more sales, you know, take it in stride and know that you'll make up for that when the actual big days hit.
Cool. And the third one?
Make sure you're diversifying your ad types. Definitely look at your product targeting, your sponsored display, video and search. That's where you're really going to drive those incremental sales at a really profitable amount. Cool.
Right. Let's leave it there. That was your in-depth. Hope you enjoyed it. What is the best way that people can reach you?
Check me out on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, or betterams.com.
Cool. Thank you, Destaney, for coming on the show today. Guys, vote now for sellerpoll.com, brought to you by Thrasio. That is open until the grand finale on the 28th. Destiny, again, thank you, guys. I'll be back here for Mindset Monday. Enjoy your weekend. Take care of yourself. Take care of your family, and good luck if you are selling on Amazon, which most of you will be. God bless, because it's going to be a big one. All right, I'll see you again Monday. Take care.